Hi, good morning, and thanks very much, everybody, for joining us today. So my name's Graham Wilson from Exertis. I'm responsible for our VMware and VeloCloud business across Europe, and I'm delighted to be joined by Dimitri Sandu, the Senior Channel Solutions Engineer from VMware, who specializes on SD-WAN and has a long track record of this. This has been a real focus for Exertis over the last couple of years. We've invested heavily into this space. We see it as having massive potential, and it's already performing well as a business unit for us. I'll now hand over to Dimitri, and Dimitri will take you through today's presentation. It's not just about cost saving. Dimitri.
Well, thanks, Graham. Nice intro, and thank you everyone for joining in and listening, whatever that's live or on demand. In the next half an hour, I wanted to do something a bit different than the usual kind of one-to-one intro. We had a previous video that kind of showed you the VeloCloud, the components, the consumption models. I really wanted to focus today on, first of all, the use cases with a couple of great success stories from some of our customers. Again, not just about the cost saving. And this is kind of to set our mind on how we should be talking to customers and how we should have a positive conversation with them about how SD-WAN can actually improve their business. And then I want to pivot and have a look on how VeloCloud fits in within the greater VMware story, because VMware has really cool products when it comes to the end devices themselves, when it comes to the data center, and obviously our engineers are very keen to make sure that they interoperate and they kind of sum to a very nice and easy solution. But quickly, for the next few minutes, I wanted to do a recap on what we discussed previously. And it was all about this idea that we're moving away from a legacy WAN approach. And by legacy, I mean we have our physical data centers on-prem, and they are connected with private lines to all our other offices. And the reason that the customers are forced to migrate to something different is that this is not scalable and this is not optimal. One of the main reasons is the move to the cloud, the fact that we're moving more and more workloads and applications to the cloud, and backhauling everything to our physical data center becomes much more costly and also suboptimal as well, especially when it comes to using real-time applications, whether that's Zoom or whatever, virtual desktops, etc. Backhauling everything and putting more devices in the data path means that there are more places where the links will get oversubscribed, and there's also more latency and loss along the way. And this translates into bad end user experience. Secondly, traditionally we have architected the wide area networks based on private circuits, and this is because the public circuits are not really reliable or had great bandwidth. But the problem now is that if we use the same circuits, we are not able to address the growth in bring your own device, the growth in guest users, and also IoT as well, because certain IoT devices like cameras are actually quite bandwidth intensive. And obviously we can go to our MPLS supplier and pay them to just give us a bit more bandwidth, but this is not really a scalable way of moving forward, right? So this is where a solution like VeloCloud comes in and says, let's re-architect everything based on software-defined networking principles, right? So move away from managing all these boxes one by one by putting instead of those routers, some of these edges. And no matter if you have one edge or if you have 10,000, you'll be able to the orchestrator here on top to manage everything to a simple, intuitive UI. And in order to offload some of that processing power of the edges and make the solution truly scalable, we came up with this concept of gateways or controllers. And this is by default hosted by us. And it's a way for the edges to self-discover all the links that they have, and also understand how to connect with the wider estate and create these overlays, right? These overlays are basically secure tunnels that allow us to abstract of the underlay and treat all the circuits the same, no matter if they are private or public. The gateways are quite nice because they also allow us to do on-ramp to the cloud. So every time we talk to a third party, whatever that's Office 365 or Zscaler or even to a legacy data center, right? We can go beyond just doing a simple IPsec or to connect directly from the edge and actually extend the SD-WAN overlay, the SD-WAN fabric, all the way to the doorstep of these providers. So for us, SD-WAN is the ability to bring your own circuits. It's not the death of MPLS. The discussion of whether or not to move totally off MPLS is a discussion that every partner should have with its own customers. And it's all about where the customer operates, their appetite to risk, what applications they still have. Do they still have an on-premise data center? Do they want to move away from that? We're just saying that, partners can sit down with customers and come up with a solution that is both performant, cost-effective, and scalable as well. And to our VR per packet technology, we actually allow you to aggregate all that bandwidth and utilize it at its full extent. Secondly, we have all these links that connect our sites together. Our technology allows you to understand if the links are performing well or not, and go beyond the usual link is up or link is down and make a decision based on that. So we understand, for example, what your business critical applications are. We can differentiate between more than 3,000 of these applications, and we know exactly what link is good for a certain application. And if no link is good, we even have remediation techniques that we can instantly deploy to just make sure that the business critical packets have the best chance to arrive on the other side. Because we're architecting everything, I think this is a great way to actually make things much easier and much more efficient when it comes to monitoring, when it comes to troubleshooting. And this is because we're now going away from the command line and into a simple and intuitive UI. Last but not least, we need to think about security because we're trying to introduce public access at each of these locations, branches, etc. So if you don't really think about security, we run the risk that somebody will be able to hack into a branch and then use the overlays to have access to the whole estate. So an SD-WAN solution should not only have good security features built in, like firewall, like segmentation, but also allow you to utilize other security mechanisms like next generation firewall, cloud firewall, etc. So a couple of use cases based on what we talked about. First use case is WAN refresh. Traditional routers have been there for a long time. Some of our customers still use them even today. But because they are CLI driven and because they require you to manage them one by one, it makes it very difficult for you to, first of all, push new policy, right? So you can roll out a business critical app in a matter of weeks, but then the network might take months until it finally gets upgraded in order to offer that quality of service that the application requires. Because we're moving away from that model to a centralized model to a simple UI, you'll now be able to do things in minutes rather than weeks or if not months. Also, most importantly, we start gaining things. We gain visibility in what's going on. So the edges will actually record all the traffic that goes through and start building up a log with the end devices, information about them, what things they try to access. And this is important for two reasons. First of all, how can you create a smart policy when you don't know how people are utilizing their network? So now the solution in itself out of the box tells you, hey, these links are overutilized, this person is abusing the network, etc. And then you can use all this information to start building a comprehensive policy. And with the help of the orchestrator, you can then easily push that policy no matter how many sites you have. Secondly, this visibility combined with troubleshooting tools means that if the service is down, you'll be able to act fast and do most of the things remotely. So traditionally, the routers were so inflexible and they didn't really have that great troubleshooting tools. So what tended to happen is that if something goes down, if let's say a branch goes down, we expect a network engineer that has the skills to drop what they're doing, and take time and money to travel to site while the service is down. So what the service down means that people cannot transact payments, people cannot work, right? So while you're losing, reputation and money, right, the network engineer has to go and do all this troubleshooting. We're just saying that most of the things that the network engineer is able to do now is able to do it proactively and also much more faster. This means that the service is back up and running faster, and this means far less loss, either financially or again from a reputation perspective. Second use case is the modernization of the wide area network. And this is where we're thinking about introducing public links to each site, not only to get rid of the bandwidth considerations, because the MPLS links tend to have very low bandwidth, but then also to make sure that if the applications are going to the internet, they can break out locally. One of the things, one of the risks is that if you start breaking out locally, especially if you're using any sort of business critical applications, SaaS is a great example, Office 365, you run the risk of something bad happening while the data is in transit, right? Nobody can give you an SLA on an internet-based transport. So this is where you use our DMPO, dynamic multipath optimization, and our wide area of array of gateways to optimize the traffic that is crossing the internet. So now we know that every time we use internet as a transport, we have all the information that we need about the health of the circuits we form, and then make an informed decision based on that. And cloud adoption is, I guess, one of the key pillars of VeloCloud, just that's the name as well. And this is us focusing over the last 7-8 years to make sure that no matter what cloud you're using, whatever that's one, that's many, etc., all the end users will have the best experience while doing so. This is where the concept of gateway came in, because that actually allowed us to extend the SD-WAN footprint. So now when I talk to Office 365 from my home location, right, I don't just do direct internet access because I'm susceptible to the congestion that happens, in the exchange, in the cabinet, all this, last mile that usually has problems. What I do is that I choose to extend my SD-WAN fabric and the power of the MPO, of the bandwidth aggregation, of the link remediation, etc., all the way to the doorstep of these providers. No matter if that's Office 365, no matter if that's Zscaler, etc., anything that is reachable with an external public IP address. So how does this translate in real customer stories? Great example, and I use this because it also shows how scalable we are, is State Farm, which is a large group of insurance companies. So their goal was kind of not to go away from MPLS because they were using MPLS to connect with their own clients, but to augment that with broadband and LTE. And I think because they had so many sites, this was where the challenge came from, because introducing multiple ways of transport makes it very hard to push policy. And if you think about this, traditional routers are not made to detect issues in the quality of the underlying links. So what tends to happen is that you have to wait for the whole link to go down before rerouting on something different. With us, because we use dynamic multipath optimization, we can track in real time things such as latency, loss, and jitter, impacting all applications, especially the real-time ones, and make a decision based on that. Again, no matter how many circuits you have on site and what types of circuits you are using. Another great example, Michelin, which is a kind of traditional company, has been there for a while. They're really proud in in their culture and their history, but they also want to to be modern and to to use the cloud. They started adopting Office 365 back in 2016, 2017, but their issue was that no matter how much they played with the quality of service of their traditional network, Office 365 was never working as planned. So they started looking at VeloCloud amongst other SD-WAN vendors. VMware bought VeloCloud, so that kind of made Michelin much more happy that a big company such as VMware is also trusting VeloCloud. And ever since then, they have deployed it across all their sites. Funny, it's a telco deployment, but it's managed in-house, kind of speaking on the flexibility of the platform, whatever you want to offer as a partner, as a managed service, or something that the customer can run in-house. So this broadly actually allowed them to adapt to kind of more digital and customer-centric business landscape, and keep in touch with the times while still maintaining their culture and their history. COCC is a fintech company. They are providing core banking and solutions and services to their own customers. For them, it wasn't just about having a network that's both performant and cost efficient, because they have seen 75% reduction in kind of their downtime and 85% reduction in the help desk calls that are related to WAN outages. And on top of that, their kind of brand new network, their scalable network, actually allowed them to introduce new lines of business. iWorkstation was one of their ideas, and this means that rather than their end customers managing their laptops on-prem, if you like so, they would be managing on the customer's behalf centrally. We are in a kind of virtual desktop sort of environment. And this is something that they could have not have been able to roll out if they still used their traditional network that was bound by all this bandwidth and performance constraints. At the moment, iWorkstation actually does around 10% of their revenue globally. So it's a great success story that not only we have minimized outages and we have created a great work environment for themselves as a company and also their own customers, but also allow them to grow and add new products to their line. And last but not least, I wanted to mention Brooks Brothers. I like their deployment because they have a truly worldwide organization. They have their manufacturing and warehouses in around the US. They have international offices. We're talking Milan, Hong Kong, Japan, and Australia, and about 500 stores worldwide. But traditionally, they have architected their network with kind of like a hub and spoke topology, because they had different sort of private transport for each site, for each regions, and they had kind of their own on-premise data centers. But as they're moving to the cloud, this started to present some issues. So with SD-WAN, they actually managed to overhaul their whole entire estate. They introduced local breakouts. They finally made sure that their private lines are not oversubscribed. And funny enough, they did that while minimizing cost and only via 6 IT people. So this shows that, from an operational point of view, even though we're talking about re-architecting the whole wide area network, the operation actually led to something much more simpler to manage and use. They actually even managed with a new WAN to change their phone system from a traditional phone to a VoIP system. So just prioritizing that and making sure that that is protected in case of outages and problems with the underlying network was made very easy with business policy and applying that globally across more than 500 locations. So with this in mind, the second part of this webinar is about how VeloCloud fits in within VMware. The great news is that since June this year, VeloCloud is fully assimilated in VMware as a company. So we are part of Partner Connect. And this means that it's actually easier to transact VeloCloud. So it is no longer the case that you have to be a separate VeloCloud partner, have a separate contract with them. We're just a new technology pillar inside Partner Connect. So, you can purchase it, get accredited for it, build your expertise in the same way as you do today with other VMware products. Now, obviously, one of the things that people associate, VeloCloud with is the data center piece, right? Because we're helping you reach the data center, no matter if it's cloud or on-prem, from all your branches. So it made sense that one of the first products that we integrate with is vRealize Network Insight, or VRNI. And this is a product that actually allows people to troubleshoot issues within the data center, saying how the flows go, what network components are, part of each of the flows. With this integration, we can now take the VeloCloud components and get them to feed information to VRNI. So this means that if there's any issues that an application occurs, VRNI has now visibility across, not only just in the data center, but across all the way to all these branch offices. So you'll see that SD-WAN is the missing link between the end users themselves and the data centers and the applications that they are trying to access. So VRNI is great because it allows you to have visibility on how, the availability of each apps, analytics per flow, and also a method of alarming in case something goes wrong. And it allows you to be more proactive rather than reactive. However, one of the things that kind of this solution doesn't have is deeper visibility into the local area network, because sometimes it's not the WAN, it's not the data center. It might be, for example, the wireless or the switching at a particular site. So in order for us to kind of complement that, we will be using one of the kind of like the latest acquisitions of VMware, and that is a company called Nyansa. Nyansa is a company that does AI ops, right? So they are very interested in performance analysis, understanding, how and where the problems occur, and give you that feedback that's necessary for you to understand where the problem lies and how to fix it as well. And the way that they do it is that they have a crawler, which is a device that allows to capture all the traffic. And then the crawler itself will also talk to different components of the network, whether that's Wi-Fi controller, the router, the switch, any trust and identity services like ISC or Radius or ClearPass, etc. And with this holistic view of the whole local area network, it will start, creating a baseline, and from there understanding when things go wrong. Now, although at the moment you can obviously purchase WANs just as a separate product, our product team is looking to integrate this into the existing edges. So rather than going and purchasing a crawler and you have to purchase the appliance or host it on a server, you can actually use the edges, all the edges that we have at the moment, and we will be building the functionality within themselves. What's quite interesting is that actually, because the edges can talk to VRNI, VRNI will then be able to see inside the local area network, and that will complete the view. You'll know exactly what's wrong with your network, all the way from the Wi-Fi, the switching, into the wide area network and into the data centers themselves. And talking about this idea of any app, any cloud, any device, one of the things that you might have seen, it was a soft launch that happened a few weeks ago, and there was going to be a full launch at VMworld back end of September, is this idea of SASE, Secure Access Service Edge. And this is the term that Gartner coined a few months ago, basically denoting the fact that the network edge functionality whatever that's SD-WAN, bandwidth aggregation, WAN optimization, is now converging with cloud security, whatever that's CASB, cloud firewalls, DLP, VPN, etc. So the vision here is, you'll be able to go to VMware and purchase everything, from us. However, if you don't want to do that, if you're happy using services like Zscaler, etc., you can still integrate it, right? We want to make sure that you have the flexibility wherever you're purchasing, again, everything from us, or integrating a solution together with many of our security partners. And the first thing that we have announced towards this is zero trust network access, and specifically the client VPN functionality. And this is something that was not available previously with VeloCloud, right? I mean, you had to go and buy your own client VPNs, and you had to deploy concentrators in your data centers, right? So if you do client VPN to a concentrator and then access your resources, this is a hard thing to do. If you need concentrators in each region, because if you don't, people will not have a great experience. You need to obviously secure that. You need to maintain it, patch it, etc. With the new offering, we're now actually offering the whole service by combining VeloCloud and our kind of service nodes and our points of presence around the world with Workspace ONE. So Workspace ONE has this concept of UAG, Unified Access Gateway, and this is their kind of authentication device in the VPN concentrator. And rather than you hosting the UAG and taking care of it in your own data centers, we will be hosting that for you out of our POPs. So this means that not only it's much more easier and more cost effective for you to deploy client VPN for any of your remote workers, mobile users, etc. But then once they reach the Velo POP, they can start utilizing VeloCloud services such as firewall, any sort of next generation security that we will be announcing as well. Any security that today you are mandating for your branches. So if your branches are using our gateways in the POP to reach Zscaler, for example, you can actually tie in your client VPN users as well. And then from the Velo POP, the client VPN users will then have access to the SD-WAN fabric. So each Velo POP will have a VeloCloud edge, right? So the client VPN users will actually look like users that are connected to a branch edge. So that edge will then have access with, the help of DMTO to all the data centers that you have, wherever they are on premise or as a, in the cloud. And this is great because going back to my slide here, this starts creating this vision that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if you come, if you're behind the VeloCloud edge, or if you're working from anywhere, just from your laptop. It doesn't matter where you're going, wherever that's, private cloud, public, right? And it doesn't matter, again, what device you're using. Graham, anything else from you?
Dimitri, that was excellent. Thank you. Really enjoyed that. It was really good to hear more about the use cases, and it was also good to have a peek into the future of what's coming down the tracks with VeloCloud. It's quite exciting, and the collaboration with Workspace ONE and so on. It's just there's a lot happening, and it's great to hear it being reverse engineered into some of the products that exist today. So that's quite exciting as well. So thank you, Dimitri. This presentation will be available in the next couple of days on our website, and I think shout out to Dimitri's YouTube channel also. I think Dimitri, you'll be popping up there as well.
Yeah, as usual with all the other videos about VeloCloud.
All the other videos, great. Yeah, so there's a whole content out there, and as I said before, this is going to be a series of webinars from Exertus on the VMware and VeloCloud topic. So please keep engaging with us, and thank you for your cooperation to date. And please, keep watching out for more collateral, more information, and talk to your local account managers as well. So thank you all. Thank you, Dimitri, and goodbye, everyone.